Okay, this is going to be quite a video here. I looked around online. There's really no videos on this unless you want to pay for it. What we're going to do is we're going to change the front fork oil on a 2012 Street Glide. I do want to mention that you really do need the bike up on a jack stand like that, where all the wheels are off the ground. Some people in forums and stuff say that you can do this with the bike on the ground. The problem that you have with that is when you're refilling the oil, there's a damper valve inside the fork, and it makes it really hard to get all the oil down the fork without the forks being totally decompressed like this. Now, I do also want to make note of we're only changing the oil. We're not repairing the forks. We're not rebuilding the forks. It is just simply an oil change like you would do an oil change on your primary or your crankcase or your transmission. You can do an oil change on these without removing the forks. The service manual says that you have to remove the forks to do an oil change, but you do not, as long as you have the right tools to do it, which for one is, like I said, a jack stand. Now the Street Glides do have dampers in both forks, so it does make it a little more difficult in order to get the oil through that damper down into the bottom of the fork. What we're going to end up having to do is, once we drain the oil, we'll have to actually lower the bike and we'll put half the oil in, and then we'll compress those forks in order to help that oil get down into the bottom of the fork through the damper. First thing we got to do on this whole process is we got to take the ignition switch out, and I'm going to try to show you the little tab that's under here. If you come down here at the bottom, you put the ignition into lock position, and underneath here, right under there, there's a little tab. And what you can do is you're actually going to reach up under there, you're going to push that little tab button, and this whole ignition will just come out at that point. Okay, first thing we're going to do is take the ignition out. So we're going to reach under and we're going to push that button that I tried to show you earlier in the video. You put it in the lock position. We don't want the steering wheel locked. So obviously when you put it in a lock position, don't turn it over to the left to lock it. But you just push that button and it comes right out. Just spring in there. Keep that spring in there together with it, and you won't lose it, and set it over to the side. Okay, now we got to get this off, because what we're going to do is we got to take this panel off right here. So just use a crescent wrench, get it right on the top there, turn it, loosen it up. Hopefully my fingers aren't in the way. Pull that off. Pull that off. Pull that off. Everything's grooved, so you really can't mess anything up when you're going to end up putting it back together. Okay, we got the ignition off. Now we're going to come in here, and there's a Torx on both sides. It's a T25, and that'll take this cover off. So there's the first side, and take it off on this side. There you go. Okay, then we'll also have to take this cover off, like that. Okay, and then we're going to take this part off here. It actually kind of just comes right off at that point, and just lift it off. Just like that. Alright, so I pulled the cover off all the way, and this is what we're going to take. We're going to take that cap off the top. That also holds the top of the fork. It can't drop out on you. Okay, so we got everything off, and now what we got to do next, we got to get this big bolt off here. It's called the fork cap bolt, and that's where we're also going to end up filling it. There's going to be a rubber seal in there that we're going to also replace. So what we got a big wrench here, and it's a 1 3/8 inch wrench. It'll fit right on there, and that's what we're going to take it off with. You cannot get a crescent wrench in there. You don't have enough turnability to be able to turn it to take it loose. So unless you have a special wrench, you just won't be able to get this off. So you have to buy one or rent one or whatever. Just get it in there, loosen that bolt, start taking it off. You can get it where you can finally get it with your finger, like that. Another thing you won't be able to use is like a big socket, because it won't fit between there and between the fork cap bolt and the handlebars. So there you go, get that off. Then there's a rubber seal in there as well, which I got to get a screwdriver to pull it out. But there's your fork cap bolt. So I got your screwdriver. I'm just going to pull out the seal. There you go. There's your seal. Okay, so we got the seal out. You can see it's raining. I sure hope this GoPro video comes out good, because it's pretty dark in here. I don't have a lot of light in the garage. But I pulled the seal out, and part of it ripped, as you can see. And fortunately, I was able to get the one piece out. I matched it up, and it does match, so that's all that was there. The other side is ripped, though, but nothing else came out. The reason I was worried about that is I don't want the piece that came apart to go down into the fork, because if I do, then we're going to be pulling the forks out, draining them to make sure that we get all the pieces out. So fortunately, that did not happen. Okay, so we're going to the other side now. Same thing. Get that bolt off. Just kind of hold that out of the way. You can undo it if you want. I mean, it's not going to really help, because you're still going to have that harness in the way whether you undo it or not. I would just rather not undo it and take the chance of bending the pins, the electrical pins in there, which can happen. Okay, once again, the seal. Be real careful. Looks like it may be ripped too. Those things fit in there real tight. I'm trying to pull it out so you can see it. It's hard to get in here though with my fingers and record at the same time. There you go. It's out. Feel in there. There's no seal left. You can easily feel, just to be sure. And then you're going to check it real good too. We put a light on it because of the rain outside, but you can see these things get eaten up pretty bad. I mean, you're not going to reuse that seal. You're going to have to get a new one. Okay, so now what we got to do to get these things draining is we got to take that little bolt out there. This is very difficult. That's all there is to it. It's not easy. What I did is I just put a number 3 Phillips head, clamped it with that. I broke it loose prior to starting this, but if you get on there with it, you can break it loose real easily. Well, I'm not going to say real easily, but you can break it loose. As you can see, I did it. That just gives you some leverage on your number 3. Okay, now what happened here is I've got the wheel locked. I had to turn in a locked position anyway to be able to get that fork cap bolt off. But now I need to straighten it up so it's going to drain. So if you take a big flathead screwdriver and you put it down in there, you can turn it just enough. You'll hear a click. There it is. To release the wheel. Then turn it back to your locked position. And that way you can straighten up the handlebars and drain the oil properly. Alright, so we're just going to take that out of there. For it to drain, we've released the vacuum up top. And there you go. There's your beautiful fork oil. Actually, it's pretty dirty coming out. Okay, we've been letting it drain. It's been going about 5 minutes now. You can see how red or dark that old stuff is. It's got a pretty bad smell to it. This is what the new one looks like. So you can see it's wore pretty good. A can of oil or a jar or tub or whatever you call it of oil is 16 ounces when you buy the Screaming Eagle heavy fork oil. So I'm going to take 4 ounces of it and use it as a flush, and I'm going to pour it in through the top and let it flush some of this old stuff out. Since I've got the extra oil, I'm going to do that for each fork. Alright, so we're using a real long funnel. It does reach down in there. It gets down into the hole without any problem really. So we'll get that in there. Then I'm going to start pouring this. And then what Margaret's going to do is she's going to run around to the other side and try to get it as it comes out. it comes. All right, so there it comes. That's the 4 ounces I put in. It's got a little red tint to it, not a whole lot though. That's going to help flush a little bit of the old stuff out since I had the extra oil from each container, the fork oil that you have to have. So we'll let that drain now for another good 5-10 minutes even. And probably while it's draining, we'll move around to the other side and start getting it to going as well. Okay, before we get started measuring, I want to show you what we're using here. Did buy it at a dealership. It's not expensive. I think it was $12 for 16 ounces, something like that. So you'll need a container per fork. It's the Screaming Eagle Performance Fork Oil, and I'm using the heavy one. It's going to give me a little bit of a stiffer ride, but I'll have better control, especially for things like skills day or competition type riding. It'll handle better on the road as well. So that's what we're going to be using for this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we got a new brass washer that goes up there. That's your seal. And I got new screws because honestly I wasn't sure how hard that was going to be to take off. It wasn't near as bad as everybody made it out to be. And basically that's it. We just put the copper washer on there. Clean this off some. Make sure you don't have any drips in there. Stick it in. There's a torque specification for this. Once again, it's an inch-pound, and like I stated in one of my other videos, I don't have an inch-pound torque wrench. So I'm going to just have to do the best I can without it. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to put my vice grips on there, and I'm simply going to tighten it up and get it real good and tight. There you go. That side's on. Okay, so I'm just going to brace the wheel with my knee. Get this on here, and I'm just going to torque it as good as I can. There it is. That's tight. It ain't going anywhere. Okay, so we got the screws in with the washer. You're going to need to refer to your owner's manual or a service manual at this point. And so since mine's a 2012 Street Glide, I've got the damper valves in mine. And it requires 10.7 fluid ounces of fork oil or 317 milliliters. So I'm going to use the milliliters since my measure right is more accurate with milliliters than the ounces. Okay, here we go. So 10 ounces of there. Here's my milliliters. There's 300. There's 325. So I'm going to go right up almost to 325 mark. When you get ready to get it exact, make sure you have a level surface to set your measuring device on so that you can get the right amount. I actually leveled the floor in my garage. I put a level on it just to see if it was correct. So you can set it down and really get down on it and see where you're at. Which, that's 325 milliliters. And I'm going to go with that because some of it's going to be left in the cup anyway. And you're never going to get all of it out of the cup. Alright, so we're ready to put the oil in. What we're going to do is we're going to pour about half in each fork. We're going to recap them. We're going to lower the bike down, and then we're going to hold the brake, and we're going to pump it a little bit real easily to help get the oil in case there's an air vacuum down in there. So it'll go down the bottom of the fork and be able to accommodate the amount of oil that's needed in here. And pour slow. That holds a little. The damper can only take so much oil at one time anyways. Okay, so I'm just going to I just have the old seal on there. I made sure there wasn't any burrs. We're not going to tighten it or anything, but I'm just going to put the cap on there on both sides until I feel that seal kind of grab a little bit. And basically I'm just doing this so that it won't squirt back out. I don't want any oil loss when I compress these forks, to make sure that what I've put in there gets all the way down to the bottom. And we'll do that to both sides. Now what we're going to do, I basically just let the bike down until the wheels are touching. I've got my hand on the brake over here, on the front brake. That'll keep me from moving forward. And I'm just going to push down on it. That'll help work the oil down into the bottom of the fork, past the damper, in preparation for the second half of all the oil. Okay, that was the first half of the oil. Took the caps back off. I didn't show it. We've already gone through that. And then we're going to slowly work the second half of oil in as well. I'll probably put half of the second half in and then let it drain and then do the other part. Okay, final drips. Everything worked out real good there. We didn't have anything overflow. That means that by rocking the forks, we were able to get any air out, air bubbles that may have prevented all the fluid from going down into the bottom of the fork. All right, so we're going to get our caps prepared. The last little bit and the funnel's draining down to the fork. So we're going to put our little rubber thing on there. Just be real careful. You don't really want it to twist on there. Just kind of move it all the way down until it bottoms out. There you go. There's one. The other one's kind of got it started earlier. Okay, I just put it in there. We saw us take it off earlier. There's no reason to show you how to put it back on. And then just get your wrench on there, and don't over tighten it. It really isn't on very tight. It's just a cap. And it also keeps the fork from slipping downwards as well. Put it on with your fingers as far as you can. And get the wrench on it. This side here is easier because the steering, the forks will lock. All right, so now we got to put the panel back on. I've got an extender in here because it's a crossover so that I can turn my passing lamps on with the high beams on. So I got to kind of shove it into the fairing as I put it in. All right, hopefully you're going to be able to see this. It's kind of dark in our garage right now. Then make sure you get the rubber things over here on the sides of the handlebars, both sides. Make sure they seal. And then we'll put the torque screws in on both sides. All right, so get up under here, get your torques in. I sure hope this video comes out. It's been thunderstorming and stuff here all day, so it really made it dark. Been working in the dark. There you go, one side. Okay, one thing I want to stress, when you put this cover on, if you have to force it to get those torques in, then it's on wrong. It should pretty much just sit in there where you can just push the bottom up, put the torque straight in. If you got to force it in there, you need to take it back off because you got a wiring harness or something that's in the way. Then we're going to take our cover and put it over our ignition area. Actually snaps in there. Okay, next thing, we take the little black deal. There's a notch in it right there. The notch goes to the back. Just slide it on there, push it down a little bit. Then we take this part, that's next. These little teeth things, they go down, and this provides a notch, and it'll go in the back. There's another notch there for the front, so you really can't get it on wrong. You can get it upside down, but you can't get it on incorrectly. And then this here goes back on, and it just screws on, and we'll tighten it with a crescent wrench. Okay, get your crescent wrench on there. Tighten it. That's all there is to it. Now, we're going to put our ignition switch back in. There's a spring there. Make sure you get that spring back in too. This is kind of a pain. There's actually videos on how to do this. And so I've got it on. I'll put it in the lock position, and I'm going to turn it. And it locks itself into place right there. And then I've got ignition. Brings everything up. Dashboard comes back up, and you're good to go. Okay, so that was it. That's how to do the fork oil change on a 2012 Street Glide. If you're going to do it, make sure you get a service manual for your specific bike so you know what type of forks you have, the amount of oil that you've got to put in it, and it'll give you some specifics as far as your torque specifications as well. It's actually pretty easy. It's just messy. It takes a long time, but other than that, it is definitely very doable.